Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you see this. But we're live currently, April the 2nd, which is a Wednesday night. Um, Coming to you live from our homes, actually. But something we wanted to start doing more, to start engaging with our crowd, build our community, is coming on having some discussions around what we do best. We do father engagement, we do early literacy. So anytime you'll see us speaking to you guys in this format, it'll be coming from that perspective. What we'll be discussing may vary, will vary, but it will always come from the perspective of father engagement or early literacy.
Right, right. So thank you all. We know we put this out here earlier that we would be getting started at 8. We actually did get started at 8. We were just on the back end with it, and now we're on the front end. So thank anyone.
Right. We was getting started figuring out how to get started, and just getting down some of the whistles, bells and whistles, because trying to up our game a little bit. So just figuring that whole thing out.
Right. So I guess we could go into Mr. B, which you
Yes.
morning, it was a message. It's what we have right here. Can you explain to us, to the audience, what you sent me and what
Yes. So woke up this morning to, like a lot of us checking social media, just seeing the topic of the day almost, right? And saw a lot of people sharing the couple posts about Anthony Edwards, and his paternal situation, his parenting situation. And, just reading through it, just was kind of like taken back from some of the response that I was seeing towards the article. And let me say, because I did some more research about the article, none of this is like he's not quoted on none of this, right? This is total speculation. This isn't something that's written in stone. This is not a court case that he actually filed to have. So let me back up even further. What was being discussed was Anthony Edwards saying that he wanted to pay his child support in full for 18 years in a lump sum, one shot. Had he had he didn't want anything to do with the child, right? He wanted to pay the money, fully support the child financially for 18 years, get it done in one shot, right? However, he didn't want anything to do with the child. And so where my reactions came when I texted Keith, hey, do you want to discuss this later? My reactions came from the response to people saying, "Wow, he like the goat. He figured out how to do it." You know, because he didn't want the child, right? He didn't want the child, so that's why he said he didn't want anything to do with it. Another key component to the story is he gave the lady $100,000 to have an abortion. She agreed to have the abortion. I guess when it was time to have the abortion, she didn't have the abortion. She kept the child. And at that point, I believe that, and somewhere within there, he stated that he didn't want anything to do with the child. Again, I will report that the whole I want to pay lump sum of money, that hasn't been proven. That's kind of like a rumor, right? Him not wanting to have anything to do with the child is more factual, and that's where I wanted to have the he's paying for this child. He did his part. He said he didn't want anything to do with it. She was supposed to get it done, and because she didn't get it done, that's on her. He did his part. He paid the money and all that, and that's what kind of got my emotions stirred. I wouldn't say necessarily emotion. Well, okay, emotions stirred a little around. This would be an interesting conversation to have, and that's when I reached out to you to say, hey, let's discuss this. But from a father engagement perspective, not the perspective of child support, not the perspective of necessarily was she right, was she wrong, but from the perspective of a child is in this world and a father is saying, "Hey, I'll pay out financially to be done with this child," or allegedly is saying, "I'll pay out financially to be done with this child." And the response from a lot of men was, "Oh, that's cool. He did his part." So I don't
Right.
know if I was a little long-winded there, but I wanted to kind of, get my thoughts out.
Nah, that's good because when you sent this initially, I'm looking at it, and like I told you straight up, for us to discuss something like this and come from a being champions of literacy, also being in the father parent engagement caregiver realm, that wow, can we discuss this?
Right.
But when you shared your viewpoints prior to us getting here and having this conversation, I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't think of it that way. And I'll get a little more into what I'm talking about, because you said you thought of me when,
Right.
and to let everyone know, and like you can see in our upcoming documentary, Reading is Love,
Yep.
put uh, I share about my upbringing. My upbringing in living in a single parent household for the majority of my life, with my mother as my uh, primary custodial parent. And at 2 years old, I was the product of a full custody battle, all out battle. For the rights of me as a child. I was 2 years old, and my mother received full custody of me. So, I am of, um, and I'm not going to. This is. I don't want to go into anything around my father or what the situation was, but I was a child, and I this was between two grown up about this me, who now,
Right.
as a 40 some, almost 50 years old adult, has been living trying to figure things out, without a consistent male figure. So I'm thankful to be here and in a position that I am to even be a champion for me. It was something that we took on, in our own rights before joining up, going on now, 9 years ago.
9 years. Yep.
So, this turned out to be near and dear to me.
Right. And that's where I thought that, we could have a good conversation around this, given your background, given my background. Keith and I come from this father engagement piece from two different angles, right? Totally opposites. As Keith just explained his father's situation. My dad was involved from day one and to the day that he passed. We had a very good father relationship. He was a blueprint for a lot of my friends who didn't have fathers. So I always wanted to pour into men, into children, into the community what that looks like when a man is involved, when a father is engaged, in the power of that. So when I heard this story, I automatically thought of a Keith because, for all intents and purposes, I Keith is the daughter in this situation, right? He's the like many of you guys listen. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Like many of you guys listen or who will see this, you are the kid, you are the product of the relationship that went right. Just say not the way it tradition you would want it to go. Right, the engagement wasn't there for the fathers for whatever reason, and how that feels. Right, because when I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's a goat," he figured out how to do this child support thing. Well, here's the thing: Anthony Edwards is making more money than most people, so to be able to pay out a lump sum of child support at one time isn't the reality of most men, right? That's not the reality. But also, if we look at that specific um action as representation of good fathership or playing his part, right? Or playing a part of anyone who does that, right? Just the financial dad. The financial dad is cool because we need funds in this world to survive.
So, see. Real
Hmm.
so we can give the people some background. Can I just paraphrase this real quick? I know you went over it.
Yep.
Um, just to paraphrase, because I also, as you're talking, just grab some of the comments in here that you've referenced, because it's about 10,000 comments on this thread. And like Mr. B said, like Brent said, I called him Mr. B. Brent Orphan comes out. That's what y'all are. But, this all, this is not full fact. We're on this story. So,
You're breaking up a little bit, Keith. I don't know if on everyone and if they're hearing that.
hey, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep, a lot better.
Sorry about that. Everyone. But you know what? Let me read this right now before my thoughts go elsewhere. So it says, and this is from Anti-Simp Intellectual Urban. Oh, that's what I was saying. Is that we're not. This is not actual factual. This is topic presenting. We're not saying this is true. Um, but something's going. Uh, so women preach my body, my choice, but when a man chooses to opt out, suddenly it's a problem. Anthony Edwards' situation is a perfect example of the double standard. She finessed him for $100,000 to get an abortion, as Mr. B said, and kept the money. She ran straight to the child support court to secure the bag. He said, "Oh, here's your money up front. Don't call me again." Now women are mad he's not emotionally or financially tied to her for life. They want full control over whether a child is born, but get upset when a man decides he doesn't want to be a part of the situation. If it's his responsibility to pay, then it should also be his choice to walk away, especially when she played dirty from the start. And let's be real, he must have just changed the game. Instead of getting milk for 18 years, he prepaid his baby mama tax like a car note and walked away. Now these settle for one lump sum instead of lifetime paycheck. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yes, that was the text. That was, excuse me, that was the post, the whatever. That's the thing that's going viral today. Um, Shared all over social media. Again, um, no one has saw Anthony Edwards make these comments. It's not in print anywhere. However, the response is what we're talking about. And something around there when he said, "Hey, if he pays the money, it's his choice to leave the kid's life." I'm paraphrasing that, right? It's something around that, and that's where a lot of comments that I saw were wrapped around. I'll say that, right? And no, that's totally wrong, right? Financially, as I said earlier, is one of the leads, right? Is only one of the leads that you need to provide as a father. And financially, emotionally, socially, spiritually, we have to show up for our kids. So no, just because you pay a certain amount, especially when you're able to, doesn't mean that you have filled your obligations and that's your right. Technically, it's your right to do whatever you want to, right? So I'll say that. So I'm not going to get into rights. But as a parent, that shouldn't be the only role you ever want to play in your child's life is a write-off, right? Here goes the money. Bye. See you later. And something else that a lot of people aren't speaking to, I believe, anyway. Anthony Edwards is 23 years old making this decision. Your brain is even fully developed until you're
Right.
25. I'm 49 years old. When I think back 26 years ago, some of at the time I thought were very bright decisions. But when I look back at them 26 years later, I'm reminded, oh, that might have not been so bright. That may have not been the best decision. At least one of those decisions weren't caring for my child, right? Because we don't get that back. That child doesn't get that engagement from a father that she needs and that she wants, especially a young lady growing up in our community. Um, who has a father who is willingly told the public before she was even born, I don't want anything to do with her. The type of psychological impact that that could have on that young lady can lead her places we don't know. And it may build her up to be the strongest young woman in this world. How whoever she becomes, however she becomes it, she's still going to be his daughter.
Do you think that if Mr. Edwards said this out of his mouth, that he'll still live up to that 5, 15, 20 years from now? He'll
Well,
still-
here's the thing. I think he kind of takes it out, takes the power of that out of his hand once he does, if he does this in the first place. And what I mean by that is, it's not on him in 10 years to be able to say, "All right, now I want this relationship with you. Let's have this relationship." Now, the power of that relationship happening is in the young lady's hand. She may say, "I want nothing to do with you." So once he initially, or if he initially, or if any father initially, right? Not just focus on Anthony Edwards, a lot of people are in this situation. They're willingly walking out of their children's lives. When you do that, you don't have the power to willingly walk back into their life.
Right. So let me uh let me just pull some of these comments that are coming up here.
Right.
May not be exactly what you had mentioned before. So let's see. Two immature adults. One wanted fun. The other wanted a come up. Ended up making a child who unfortunately will be the piece of two moving forward. Growing up in separate houses is never good for a kid. Do better. Be smarter. Do y'all agree? Is growing up in separate houses when it doesn't have to be that way, is that ever good for a kid?
I would say when you try to generalize anything, you start to make a fool of yourself,
Right.
for a lack of a better word. But I would say this: there are definitely great children who grew up in two different houses. Right? Everyone's situation is different, and some parents, some children, some parents, some families make that work better, way better than parents growing up in the same house. Right? Ideally, what I grew up under, I think most of us believe is that a two-parent house would, the works best, right? You're able to, there's balance there, right? There's a mom, there's a dad, there's a team, more of a team there. So that's not going to always be the situation. That's ideal, right? But I believe as long as both of the parents are committed to raising a healthy child, keeping a kid centered first, right? That you can make any situation work, right? A parent could be in Arkansas, one could be in Vermont, but if they're working together for the betterment of the child, they can make it work. And that just has to be the focus, because notice in that uh, comment, they spoke about who? The two, there's three people involved in this, but they only spoke about really the two.
Right. Okay. I'm trying to read through these things because some of them don't have the best of language and all of
Right.
these.
Yep. And also, I like to say, as you're reading through this, because I know sometimes, especially, as men, and I'll speak from a man's perspective, sometimes we feel like we get beat up in this thing, especially in child support. Um, Total honesty, I Keith and myself, Mr. A and Mr. B, as we know it out here when we're performing. We've never been in child support court, right? I've never been down that route, and I understand that can create some emotions, that can create some resentments, that could create a lot of things. Because one thing I will say is, I don't believe that child support court is fair to fathers. I don't believe that a lot of the laws and rules have been updated or modified since uh, it recently. I'll say that I don't believe so. I Let me get that out the way, because I don't want to sound like I'm bashing men. But when we speak, you have to understand that we are speaking from the perspective of engagement of fathers and why that is best for children. I don't want to get into child support. I don't want to get in too much into who was right, who was wrong. We're speaking from specifically a man and a woman it takes to create a child, a man and a woman it takes to raise a child. And when one of those parents, in this case is a father, but when in the case of when one parent decides to respectfully, as they say, or disrespectfully, uh, opts to walk out the child life, that's an issue. That's an issue. And that cannot be celebrated because on the way out, someone says, here, here's enough to cover the bill, right? Here's enough to cover your 18-year bill. I'm out of here. And I have that right, right? And not only do I have that right, I should be applauded because I paid that bill, but willfully walked out my daughter's life or my kid's life.
So, Mr. B, you and I are both married and have been over 15 years, the both of us.
I was about to say, yeah, we're going on what, 19 years here. Yeah.
We're going on 16 this year. So, in saying that, when you so for myself, when I married my thing that we discussed, there were certain standards that we wanted to communicate to each other. We wanted the relationship for the so we wanted to put some things out there and share those things. Um, Now, where I was going with that, Mister B, I don't know.
Well, and just knowing you, I think it may be something around like, I want to say standards, but certain things that you wanted to put in place, certain non-negotiables, maybe for how you raise kids, being there for your kids, because again, I do think that's a non-negotiable. I don't think you have the right to walk out your child's life. I don't think that's a right that any parent has.
Right, and that's non-negotiables. Thank you for getting me back on track.
We used to talking to each other.
Right. So, even prior to knowing my wife, one of my non-negotiables was whoever was the mother of my child, we were going to do whatever it took for us to remain together, to be a part of this child, to raise the child. And like we said, we know every in reality that it's not the dream world. Things happen. All relationships may not work out, but we have to make it work, even if you're in this house and I'm in this house, because they have to see workable relationships because it's not about us anymore. Anybody and Anthony Edwards, hopefully if you said these words that if they're true or not, I'm not here to take sides on this. Um, but to know you you brought a child into this world that did not ask to be brought here was something that like blew my mind when I became a parent.
Right. I can't fathom. I can't fathom. I think of one of the best things I believe right now is Facebook memories. And I'll tell you why. Because these memories, my kids are what are they now? 17 and 13. They're getting older. My son is getting a mustache. My daughter's going on a prom next week. So, they're growing and this is happening fast. And I get these memories and I get to see them when they were 7, when they were 6, and they were 5, and they were 4. And I get to see these happy time. We out playing wiffle ball bat and being silly at the pool, dancing to Beyonce. And I'm like, man, not only were those times fun, those times created a better person. And that better person was me because I was able to experience these interactions and wanted to keep experiencing them. um, you start doing things different, right? You start making a different decision. You start dreaming bigger. You start doing a lot of different things because you realize they're almost like a power. You would say put a battery in my back. Your kid's almost like the battery in your back to get home at the end of the day. Just sometimes like, I just want to get home and see my children today. To experience that love is something we talked about earlier, when we talked about relationship. I'm talking about we in a personal conversation we talked about earlier, is it's worth trying to make a situation work for the kids, right? And what I mean by that, as a father, especially young fathers, specifically, I'll speak to young fathers who may not get that chance to be with that kid, right? When you're young, the living arrangements may not always be right. But why it's worth to try your best, not necessarily to stay. What happens with your partner happens with your partners, right? That's a husband thing. As a father thing, why you want to stay connected in that kid's world as best as you can is because no one tells you about that first time they walk, right? No one tell and how excited you get. Like, that's my baby walking. That's my baby girl, my baby boy. When he smiles, when they just see you, look up and smile, and you walk through the door, and you had a bad day, and you see that smile, right? When the first time they run to you, first time they throw a ball, the first time they say a word, right? That they've been trying to say for a while, and they finally get the word out, and it's like what you feel inside, and that's when I saw people applauded. Hey, he financially he did it. He did his part. No one talks about, and when young people see that, it's like, oh yeah, he did pay that, right? He young impressionable fathers that come. All I got to do is pay. If I pay my part, I'm good, man. Bring home the bacon type thing. No, man. When that kid hugs you, there's no amount of money in the world that can replace a hug, that can replace I love you, that can replace a kiss, that we can replace a I'm scared to sleep at night and they come cuddle with you type thing, right? We don't have those conversations enough and talk about the joys of that. If young people heard that more, or I'll say young people, um, or fathers in general, and I'm speaking to fathers, right? If they heard that more and what that feels like, they may fight more to stay connected to that.
So stay right there because I got two things off of that. One of them is a comment that I just came across, and this is almost, I would say this might be on more from the child side. It says, or this gentleman says, I always wonder how the children in these scenarios would feel when they became adult and they they were born others financial gain. Crazy, right? You want me to read that again?
Yeah. To say that, yeah, let me gather my thoughts around that.
Always wonder how these children in these scenarios would feel when they become an adult and learn that they were only born for their mother's financial gain. Crazy, right? Now, let's say if this story was true and she was doing this for financial gain. Again, I think what we always say is we got to consider the child, regardless of what the mother did or tried to do and what the dad is doing. We still have a child.
Right. And if we want to keep it on fathers, right? Because that's our perspective is father engagement, right? Once that child realizes that she was basically the pawn of the mother's game, is what this guy is saying, right? He wondered what the child feels like. Here's the thing: before the child is ever with the mother, the child is with us. Babies are We understand how this works, right? We understand the natural reproduction. Babies come from the man. We release babies until, and I'm gonna go all graphic, whatever, but we understand what I'm saying, right? We understand. So my point is this: if we're going to talk responsibilities, where does the ultimate to me in the situation stand? You can say one, I'll say two. Someone making sure that happens, right? Hey, before we have do this, Let's make sure we're protected from a female's perspective. From a man's perspective, even if everything we get past that point, and there's adults that happens, right? We get past that point. Still, the final, you know, decision in all of this is the man's.
So on the
She can't get a pawn in the game without the man. I wish I knew more chess references, but she can't become a pawn in the game if the man didn't allow it to become a pawn in the game. You dig what I'm saying?
right. So there was a flip side. So that question was focused around, the woman, the child, what the outcome could possibly be. Now I said I wanted to look at Mr. Edwards here.
Hmm.
This is something when I lost my thought earlier when I was talking about marriage and us being marriage and having the non-negotiables. Uh, you know, for myself, even with starting, uh, you know, my fatherhood organization before we both got it was are these being had to where the female or the male is finding out what that relationship was with the father or with the caregiver, but specific um talking about the dads in this case. So Mr. Edwards, I'm familiar, is his father still in, like, was his father, did he grow up with his father? Did he grow up in a single parent home? Did he also experience dad having multiple children? Because usually, as we know, history can repeat itself, unless we choose to do different. So, do we even
And
know?
I thought about that earlier because you're right. Usually, men who come from situations where they have engaged parents, engaged dad, is usually what they become, right? I've seen that more times than not. When a guy has an engaged father, he usually follows that blueprint. I've rarely seen it not happen that way. Does it happen? I'm sure. However, I thought about that because I remember seeing, I haven't really been following the NBA closely this year, but I saw a clip of Anthony Edwards' grandfather came to a game. It was a big surprise. And in there, it mentioned that he either hadn't seen him play in high school or hadn't seen, like, long story short, his grandfather hadn't seen him play in a very long time. And what it did make me think of is, and again, I don't know their situation, of his engagement, right? Because when I think of hopefully one day having a grandchild, whatever that kid does, I'm gonna try my best to be at it, right? I'm gonna try the best to be engaged in some way, even if it's just phone comment and FaceTiming and phone calls. I'm gonna try. So when I heard that there was some type of disconnect, and it wasn't spoken to heavily, but it just was mentioned kind of matter of factly that they hadn't seen each other in a while. It When I heard this story, it made me think of what was his possible father engagement. Because when I was doing a little background, I see that there's like two or three kids possibly out there. Um, Daddy's father, again, I don't want to just throw around, but there's multiple kids. Um, and just what is that connection? Because a lot of times that connection either creates what you become or creates what you don't want to become.
So I will. I just did my own, research. This is out of this article was from last year, and it says the shooting guard was born to his dad, whose name is not known, and mom, Patricia Yvette Edwards, on August 5th. He was primarily raised by his mother and grandmother, who did both pass away when he was 14 years old.
Right. So with Anthony Edwards, what I'm assuming, just getting background from here, he hadn't saw his grandfather in a while. Reading that, I'm looking at some of his Wikipedia now, and just doing again. I know Wikipedia is the most, informative thing, but you can get some aspects of a person's life there. So what I'm just gathering from that is, uh, he probably doesn't know true family, mom, dad in the house, traditional family dynamics and the benefit of those, right? He's probably having experience that he may have just judging by some, again, brief information that we've gathered. He may not, we know his father wasn't in his life.
No, and when his mother and grandmother passed, he was under the guardianship of his older brother and sister. So,
Right.
there was probably some freedom there.
There's probably a lot of freedom there. There probably also weren't, just guessing because we've worked in these situations, right? We know these situations. There probably wasn't a lot of love and joy shared around parenting. You know what I mean? And what I say by that is I think about today, right? Me and my brothers and sister would text something about daddy. Remember, daddy said this. Remember, we went here with daddy. Remember this, that. Remember, mommy used to say this all the time. You know, and that's something that we just do because we saw a picture or we heard a song. And we're sharing these loving moments of family, right? Aunt probably believes, and I've heard this from talking to, and you can speak to this. I made myself. I made who I didn't need a man to grow up, right? I didn't need that in my life to grow up. And look at me, right? I'm number one player drafted. I'm Ant Man, right? I'm that bull right now. And I've accomplished all of this without an active father in my life. Could I have been better if I had an active dad? You know what I'm saying? And well, here's the thing. Sports wise, maybe not. Sports wise, maybe not, right? Maybe that wouldn't have made a difference. But you may have thought, I'm never leaving my child's life, right? Because part of responsibility and being a man is taking on whatever you got yourself into is handling it. Yeah, yeah, maybe he doesn't like that woman. Maybe he doesn't like the way they procreated this child, right? However, just saying I'll pay my way out of this situation isn't something that you want to practice as a characteristic of yourself. Like, this is who I am. If I get in trouble, I'll just pay my way out of it, right? So maybe if he had a father in his life, he learns that. He learns that. He learns the beauty of being a father.
And so I've shared this with you and myself, talking about myself working on a relationship with my biological father, and some of the times we would, I guess, come up against each other, will and respectfully, because I have not ever disrespected my father. But when I told you earlier that I was a part of a custody battle, my father leaving me at 2 years old in that courtroom with my mother, I believe he still sees me as that 2 year old child. So how he talks to me can sometimes be like I'm a little kid,
Mm.
and I'm 40 some years old now with children of my own and even a grandchild. So just imagine if somebody is doing that, So in it's a relationship, make sure I have work. I mean, heck, I've lived this life without, a consistent male figure. Again, like we said, I made it this far. I'm Ant Man. I'm Mr. Egg.
Right.
What, but I think what helped me out is that I got to understand the story. And I not only got to hear it from my mother's side, because I heard it from my mother's side for a very long time, which kind of made me distance myself from my father from the story that I was told. But then got older, I wanted to make sure I heard his side of the story as well. So that helped me with any of my choices moving forward, what I wanted when I had a family, when I had children. Now, when we talk about Anthony in this article, it also says that since he was a kid, Anthony was known as Ant Man, a nickname given to him by his dad. Um, toddler. However, the NBA star told that he didn't know much about his dad otherwise. Those people around him told him he was a skilled basketball player, but it says he didn't know much about his dad. So, what if he did learn something about his dad other than just, hooping and playing ball? What if he was told more to the story that now Ant can make a choice when he did encounter, when he did maybe want to possibly find a child with this woman, that when this child is born, that no matter what, because this is about it, Mr. A talk, no matter what, I'm going to be here for this child. Um, the best that I can. So,
And I think, we are who we where we come from, what we've been through. We're a product of all of that. And how could you not be, right? How could you not be? And hearing that, his father didn't play a big role in his life isn't surprising. Hearing allegedly this decision and some of the other actions that may have taken place, because when you speak to that, I'm gonna be here for my child. uh, You had it because it's just, what that is. One of the things that I always tell people, well, I don't always tell people, one of the things that I truly believe, though, the relationship that I have with my dad, I'm able to revisit it through my son. Right? It's just flip flop. He's the son, I'm the dad now. You know what I'm saying? And our DNA is so much alike that it's like we're dealing with the same people. You know what I mean? And that's beautiful. Would never want to miss it. But if you never had that, how do you know that you're missing that? How do you know that that's something precious? Again, I'm Ant Man. Anything that I got, I made millions being Ant Man. I had a brother and sister basically raised me, a mom, um, kind of assuming his background just based on those situations, right? I didn't have a lot, but we still got a lot. And I didn't need a parent to get that.
right. Hey, I think
Why would it be hard to believe that he believed a kid doesn't need that?
right. Out of
And,
anything,
and, and one of the things we discussed earlier, out of situations, and you go and it's I think about a master's degree that I should have got when I was in my 20s, right? But my 20-year-old mind said a happy hour was a little more enticing than sitting in a school trying to get my master's degree.
right.
Um, and I kick myself over that at times, right? That I should have got that done. Have I, okay, I've lived without it, but I really wish I would have got that done. That's a master's degree, right? That's something tangible. That's paper, whatever. That's not a child. That's not a living, breathing person that you may run into. Um, she may be the next Ant Girl. She may be the Ant Girl, right? Or she may be the best lawyer, or she may be the next best.
Right.
Like a fine if you take care of financially your child, that should take care of everything else, right? That's not the way we should be thinking. Regardless of how we bring children in this world, they are blessings and they do more for you, a lot of times, than you can do for them. And that may sound crazy, but kids are such motivational pieces.
And they're what we all are, even though we're adults, but they're balls of energy, and we see them, Mister B, when we go into those child care centers. they're angels. Imagine
Right.
if this maybe not magnitude of the money, um, living something similar. You,
And I think people should know who's watching this, because sometimes you assume people who know you watch these things. We're Fathers Read 365. We're we're parenting engagement specialists, but what we really sink our teeth into is early literacy, and not just early literacy, but engaging fathers in early literacy with their children. And our quest, we have many quests, but truly we want the best literacy resources for the children in our communities, and we work through early learning centers, right? Daycare, pre-care centers, however you want to refer to them. We work through those early centers as a way to get access to the community, to have conversations around early literacy, to provide resources around early literacy, to provide trainings, to provide content. We're really trying our best to get our community and to start having the conversations and realize the importance around early literacy. And the way that we chose to do it is by engaging fathers. So I don't want people to watch this. We've been speaking for 45 minutes here and think, some people could come off with, hey, well, they're getting on this guy, Anthony Edwards. They're getting on dads about being engaged. And no, we're not getting on anyone. We're being honest about how we feel about father engagement. But we also want parent people to know watching this that we believe in fathers. We believe so much in fathers that we started an organization, a business, however you want to talk about it, to work with men, right, to enhance the things that men are doing. We also know that men, black men in particular, are the most engaged fathers, right? So this decision by Anthony Edwards, or alleged decision by Anthony Edwards, and people in this situation is not indicative of black fathers in general. This is a conversation we thought we could have because it's a hot topic, yes, but it's a hot topic that is speaking to father engagement specifically, and we just believe so much in fathers that we believe that they should always be engaged in their kids' lives, regardless of um other relationship that they that we believe they.
right. I know we're about to wrap this up here. What I want to say to, if this is all true, whoever the mother of the child is to please get a positive father figure. So if it's your father, an uncle, someone to engage that child. Because what we also want Mr. Edwards to know is that if this is true, what that child is missing out on is the moments that Mr. B and I talk about what we were doing prior to our kids being born. When we would come home from work, reading to kids. Because I think, when I get into when I talk to kids and involves is that in these communities, well, shoot, even talking about from our own family standpoint, when we started these initiatives, these fatherhood initiatives to get men engaged to keep our kids safe. We want our kids safe
Yeah.
communities. So when a child is reared or engaged, when a man is there, what the positive outcomes are for that child. When a dad is reading to a kid, birth to 5 years old, what the positive outcomes are for that child. So if Mr. Edwards is not there, whoever has a child, please, we ask for promises all the time. Please get a man involved. And start reading with that child, or just engaging them positive.
Yes, and I would just like to put out more of a statement around, thought around. Q-Tip had this line back in the day in a song where he said, progression can't be made if we're separate forever." And it speaks to working together, right? Family is working together. Community is working together. Like there shouldn't be this men and woman. And if we keep the children at that, right, we keep them as the focus, right? We want to make it better for the children, whether biological children or the children of our communities. If we keep that at the forefront of how we make decisions, how we move, who we move with, because a child doesn't have to be created in this situation. Those two people could have did what they did and went their separate ways, and the child would have never been involved. That was their decision. So once they made that decision, men, women, parents, people, once you make a decision to bring a child into this world, the least that we could do is ensure that that kid is safe. And that's something you said, Keith. This is a young lady being brought into this world who possibly will know, especially through media as she grows, that her father said, I don't want you. I don't wanna have anything to do with you if this is true, if this plays out the way that it's been presented today. And even if it's not true, right? There are have actively or women said that we don't want to be engaged in our child's life. As a man, just speaking towards protection, there's a child out there in this world feeling like that dude just ain't want me. He ain't want me. He didn't like me, and for whatever reason that happened, and that could charge him to be the greatest person in the world. That could take him down some very dark places. And again, whatever route they go, to the Anthony Edwards of the world, if this is true, or to the fathers who make these decisions, that's still your child. That's still your child, regardless if you say I want something to bring home the bacon. And sometimes we can live in that glory. Shit. We've heard and say, hey, I, I'm here. I did better than my dad. I make money. I pay the bills. I'm here. And that is great. And he probably is doing better than his dad. But we need guys to engage with their kids socially, emotionally, spiritually. Our kids need us just as much as they need us financially.
Right. And I
And I hope I haven't. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
go be that right now. Go be that dad. So it was great
Yep.
about this, this topic. We're going to do a lot more. Make sure y'all like, share, subscribe. Y'all throw some comments in the chat, in the comment section. Do all that.
Yeah, we just getting started, guys, but we're gonna be keep coming to you. It's not gonna always be this type of conversation, but it will be father engagement conversation, educational time conversations, literacy, definitely hard literacy conversation. Pay attention. We got look out for our family literacy night coming April the 9th. We're going to have a webinar April the 9th. We're also going to be live on YouTube. Make sure you check that out. Mr. A said, please like, share, subscribe, get in the comments, whether you agree with us or not. We're trying to build a community where we stay connected through early literacy and through parental engagement, and trying to build something that we may not necessarily see all the time, but we know that's possible. And that's us loving on each other, us building each other up in a way that we prepare for this world, whatever comes our way.
Right. Keep spreading the good news. So thank
Yeah.
whoever tuned in, whoever's tuning in, wherever you are, nothing but love on this side. Peace and blessings.
Peace, y'all. Have a good night. We out.